We are on live
But
right now. Woo! And we are working the 10K on 10-1, the charity water campaign that we're working on to help bring more water to the people of Orissa, India. And we're so glad that we're talking Google Hangouts today with Brandee Sweesy. So, Brandee, I'm going to hand it over to you.
oh my, I'm so not ready for this. So I just say, okay, first, I'm honored to be here. What an incredible cause. I am so grateful that you considered me and had me on and everything else. But I was just telling my horror stories. I'm breaking every rule of Google Hangouts by being on public Wi-Fi right now in a hotel lobby. Never, ever, ever do this. Always be hardwired. So I apologize. So that's why we're running a little bit behind. So thanks, everybody, for being here. So I really appreciate it as I scramble to get in my lower third as well.
No stress. Thank you so much, Brandee. And one of the things that we want to do is we really want to make this a Q&A session. So we do have some questions for you. We have Darlene. I'll have you introduce yourself.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Darlene, and I know Mike from a couple of different places. We went to the World Domination Summit together, and we've danced, and he's a great dancer, and he's a great hugger, and we're also both members of the Fizzle.co community, which is a great place for online entrepreneurs to learn about business. And I found out about Mike's thing yesterday, and I support Charity Water as well. I've done campaigns for them, and so I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Hey, welcome.
Now, what's your question for Brandee, or questions that you have for her?
I have a couple of them because I've done Hangouts before, so I'm an experienced Hangouter. I've used them for interviews and things all the time on my website. My website is about teaching photography and teaching art, to beginners, to amateurs. And so I've done them with interviews with other people who are already experienced Google Hangout people. But I also tried a Q&A session with some readers, and that didn't go so well. There were some technical issues. People had trouble signing in. They don't want to join another social network. So my first question is, how would you use it so for a business like my own, teaching photography and doing that sort of thing?
Okay, so first, one of the biggest things is that most people aren't familiar with Google+. So the whole challenge with getting in is, though the quote-unquote experts tell you to just, invite people and they'll be notified, I've never seen it go that way, not once ever. And so kind of like how Mike introduced us tonight, he sends us a link and we just click to join. So that overcomes the challenge of trying to get people into the Hangout. That would be the first part. It's still not familiar, and the reason why that doesn't work is that you're not in control of your end user's notification process. And to try to control that is almost impossible, because there's just so many different ways that you can get notifications on your phones and your Gmail. Maybe they check their Gmail, maybe they don't. They look on G+, they're trying to hunt you down. And so the biggest challenge that I've seen with Hangouts has been that struggle of people not being familiar with the platform, and you're sending them all over the planet trying to figure out how to get them in, and then you're frantic beforehand, and then they're not enjoying it, you're not enjoying it, it's just not a good time. I don't advise this for the general public, though I'm sure there's thousands of people watching to support this project. Usually when you start a Hangout on air or a private Hangout, which is called a Hangout video call, which is not recorded or streamed live to YouTube, you just start the Hangout, get in the Hangout by yourself, get comfortable, get situated, and then you just share the link that's above us that you see in the menu bar. And then you kind of prep your people of what's coming, because it is unfamiliar territory for a lot of people. If you can be more proactive, so kind of probably what Mike has sent to you that I gave to him, is to let them know, hey, you'll be receiving this email. All you got to do is click the link to join. Here's some things that could go wrong, like you probably will be auto-muted depending on the settings. Maybe your camera's not working. Keep that link handy in case, sometimes things bounce out. So if they have that link handy and they drop out somewhat due to public Wi-Fi problems, then they could just click the link and then just jump back in. So that would be the big part of, I think, where people find Hangouts challenging. Now, can you ask me the second part of the question, which is how to use it in your business? But can you describe it for me again? I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I'm a little
I'm a
frantic. Yeah.
photographer. Yeah, I know you're a little frantic. So I'm a photographer, and now I've moved into teaching photography. So I lead workshops and photo tours and things like that. And I'm moving into more digital products, virtual classes, ebooks, that kind of thing. So how do you see me using? Because I love Google Hangouts, and else could I use them besides just interviewing other photographers?
Well, you can screen share, right? So I would share, I would screen share my images. If you're teaching people digital photography, if you're doing any type of Photoshop, you can do those all in a group setting because you can have yourself plus 9 other people. So you could be teaching them that in a workshop setting in a private hangout. It doesn't necessarily have to be a hangout on air and stream live to YouTube. So it's really good for group coaching. And then if you want to record that, you need to use a type of ScreenFlow or Camtasia, depending on which system you have. And then if you want to do something on air, I would do some screen shares. One way that you could do it is you could still be on if you wanted to use a second computer for ease, so you don't have to worry about taking screen share on and off. So you could still be talking to people, but also showing them on the other computer, what you're doing with your art, how you're working with that. And so that would be a great way to bring them kind of into the art, bring them into the story, right? Because that's a big portion of what I love about Hangouts is that opportunity. It humanizes your brand. So you see me frantic and, just getting in from LA, but, it makes me human. And they're like, oh, well, stuff happens, doesn't it? And so when you do things in Hangouts to really realize that they don't have to be so perfect and polished as much as it's just giving an opportunity for human-to-human connection, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can share in the story and share the art and share the story behind the art instead of your typical, just a presentation. They get the opportunity to interact and engage with you as well.
Okay.
Did that answer?
Yeah. Sort of, yeah. I mean, I've done some of that, and like I said, I tried to do a Q&A. I put it out to my readers. I say, okay, I'm open for a couple of different Q&A sessions at different times. One that would fit with North American times, one with like UK, and I think I had full in the first one, and I had a couple in the second one, but we had technical issues, like you said, and people didn't realize it was a video, so they didn't have a webcam, or they didn't have a microphone, so they were typing in the chat room frantically, and then it was all this tech challenge stuff. So, I mean, the link that you guys sent out, how do you get that? Is that because you've scheduled it as an event, or because how do you get that prior to actually launching the Hangout?
You don't actually, and so that's why it's good to prep them on the front end. So like that, that sheet that he had sent, it's preparing you for what's coming. Be sure that you're hardwired. Make sure you have a headset to avoid feedback. Set up your camera. You can practice on your own prior to joining the Hangout. So you prep them for that, and then let them know that they'll be receiving the link 15 minutes prior to going on air, and then that's an opportunity to speak with you. So what you do is that whole checklist, your that kind of guidebook, for lack of a better word, is kind of prepping them for what's coming and gives them the opportunity. Excuse me. It has the links in it for them to practice themselves so that they get comfortable. They can test their webcam. They can test their audio, see what they look like on camera, try out some different angles. And then they're more comfortable and they're more prepared. That frantic thing right as you're about to go on air is very nerve-wracking for you as the host, for your guests as well. So the more that you can acclimate them to what's coming, the much more comfortable they're going to be. So like that thing that we sent you, it says, okay, at this date and time, you'll expect to receive a link from this email with this as the subject line. Just click to join. Then when we talk about the custom overlays and lower thirds, that's a personal decision, certainly. But, here's how to just turn on a basic lower third. This is where the mute and unmute button are. So you're helping them to be comfortable with it before they just try to jump in. And I think the biggest thing with Hangouts, and quite honestly how I fell into them, is I thought it was going to be really easy. I was like, that's free. Like, how hard could this be, right? But what we're experiencing is that for most people, it's not that simple, because it's not very intuitive, quite honestly. It's not what we're used to with our iPhones and our iPads and our, all of our smart stuff. It's just a little bit different, and so it makes people nervous. So the more that you can prep them in advance, the better. And you can't get that link prior. There's no way to get it prior. It doesn't happen until you are actually in a Hangout that you're able to grab that link. So that's why you want to give them information, something to chew on play with, get them excited, things to be looking out for prior to them receiving that link. Because then they receive that link and they've discovered that they haven't downloaded the Hangout app, right? They haven't downloaded anything pertaining to, so then they're freaking out at that 10-minute before mark.
Hey, Brandee, a question came in. Who's killing it right now? Who's doing it very well?
Killing Hangouts?
Yeah. Who should we be watching?
Who should you be watching? I can tell you that a few of my clients are about to kill it, but they haven't quite launched yet. It is such a wide open space. I think David Siteman Garland did a great job. We did a few events. He's going to do a few more of the Rise to the Top. He's a definite pro. He has that energy on camera. He knows how to show his sponsors, because he has sponsors obviously for his show. I think that he's gonna nail it when he fully commits to it, to doing them more often. And it's one of those things, like, define killing it. I think there's a lot of people that are doing it really good. Yeah. I think that though it's been a couple years old, the opportunities are so vast. I would love to see people get a lot more creative and also a lot more professional on their Hangouts. I think that everybody's still being a little too, I'm kind of sitting in my living room, kind of chatting with, it's like, no, remember your end viewer. That's the other thing, though it doesn't have to be such a professional, polished presentation. Do remember that, remember what your end user is experiencing. Like, have the energy up, have the excitement up, be on camera, like, realize that this is a representation of your brand, like, go for it. It doesn't mean just because it's a Hangout that you just kind of, I think I had a question. I can't remember. like realize that you're putting on a professional presentation and take it a little bit more seriously. Yeah. And not like I did tonight, but yes, in general.
Well, I actually think you're doing an excellent job of two things that you talk about. One is being human, and then two is being professional. It's being able to pull together the things that you did in the amount of time that you actually did. So we're definitely grateful for that.
Thank you.
Did you have any other question, Darlene?
Oh, I have a comment on you were asking about who was killing it. I mentioned in the little chat side group for us there, in my world, in the photography world, Trey Radcliffe, who's one of the most followed guys on Google+. He does a weekly, it's Trey's show. I don't even know what he calls it, but it's every Monday evening he does a show, and he has a panel of people in it, and he usually has several thousand people watching live, so he's killing it.
Okay, and I may even take back killing it, as Brandee pointed. Is what are some of the creative ways that people are using it? Who's doing things that really are attracting people? Because I guess, like you said, killing it can sometimes seem so. How do you really define that? But what are some of the creative things, creative ways you see people using it, Brandee?
Well, like we did one last week where it was a launch, where there was an artist who she had done such a great job. She, it was an independent artist, and then she did a big launch, and the goal was to be #1 on iTunes for they did this 3-hour event. I thought that was really great. They had Dave Austin on there. They had all these world famous sports stars call in. I mean, people were calling in. I thought that was pretty fun and creative. I've seen sculpting classes on there. I think that's great. I think book launches are great. I think that, I just love, it's only limited by our small minds, and I think that that's where people could get really crazy creative and do some really fun stuff on Hangouts if they just, got away from it. It has to look like GoToWebinar, or it has to look a certain way. I think that, because when I started with Hangouts, I really thought it was a replacement for GoToWebinar, but where people were getting hung up was in that it had to be exactly the same. Well, no, if have personality, engage with your people, be in front of your people, have live interactions, have people pop on. We're going to run a contest for one of my clients where we're going to run a contest, and have them make videos to win an opportunity to be on with this, quote unquote stars.
Yes.
And then I think that Video Genesis, those guys did an amazing job. Andy Jenkins and Mike Filsain, they did a great job of live event with a whiteboard. They had backed out. I mean, they used YouTube live events, but they were positioned as Hangouts, which is a deeper topic. But I thought they did a great job. They really got that whole feel of having a show type of personality and presence with the cameras and the whiteboards, and they kept on going live and taking questions and things. And I think that that's where it starts to get fun. And I think that's why so many stars are doing it as well, because it's an opportunity for them to engage with their audience.
Excellent, excellent. Darlene, I think you had at least one last question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed on your website, Brandee, that I signed up for your updates, and then you have that little intro video, which you did as a hangout. And so I'm actually working on a new website that's a rebrand a little bit, and I want to do an intro video, but I sort of don't have the resources yet to do, the polished thing like you said. So I found that was kind of an interesting way of getting something out there. Do you have any suggestions? Like, did you script that and practice it ahead? Like, what kind of tips do you have for doing an intro video?
I'm probably the worst. I never script anything. Yeah, and when you ask me to script, like my head hurts and I get analysis paralysis and I think too much, and that's why I like live videos so much. I definitely think about what I'm going to say. I'm like, okay, it has to be succinct. It needs to get to the point. I'm obviously going to be live on air, so I need to rock that out. So I thought about what I wanted to say. I wanted to keep it under a minute. And then I just really grip it and rip it. I think, if you are a public speaker, if obviously you're accustomed to speaking in public, we have our bullet points we want to cover. I think you need to know what you want to cover, because we may lean towards over-explaining ourselves sometimes, and I'm very guilty of repeating myself far too often. People point that out to me. So you again, thinking of your end user. The other thing that I did, and what I was testing when I did that, was how the Hangout on Air bumper goes on either side. If you go into YouTube Video Editor, you can cut that out and make that, and so it just looks like a nice clean video.
Right.
So I chose to say that I'd done those on air, but then I cut those out so that it looked, because the reason why I'm such a big fan of Hangouts is that you don't need these big expensive video editors and these intros and these outros and these jump cuts and all. This is just brilliant for the average user. I mean, right now I'm on my MacBook Pro with my webcam with lobby lights. Not my ideal situation with my phone on top of that. I'm like breaking every rule possible that I drill into everyone's head. But you could simply, if you wanted to make, I have it on my about page. I have, I made about 4 different videos, all under a minute. One's for my fan page, one was for my about page, one was for my YouTube trailer is what it's called. I made all of those in under 30 minutes. And that to me is just brilliant. Like when I think about doing video, I'm just like, oh, I gotta script it, and then I have to put in these, intros and these outros, and it has to be funny, and I have to be funny, and then I have to jump cut it, and then I gotta find an editor, and it's just, ugh. And so I love this for, again, it humanizes the brand as well, so it doesn't look too polished and unaccessible.
I really like that, because it kind of just gives me permission to do that, because I was feeling like, okay, I need that polishment. I'm at the point where I want to have my new site and everything. I want everything to be perfect, but maybe I just want to get it out there, and then, perfect can come 6 months from now or whatever. So.
Well, and honestly, I think that that's really where it's going to go. Like, I think with Hangouts, over the last few years, obviously videos are huge, right? That's where everybody's been getting traction. But now we look to the stars and we think, well, yeah, they have a video editor. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They can sit in a studio all day long and shoot 7 at a time. And so we get more intimidated and we get more into that perfectionism model. And I think that what I love about Hangouts is it's bringing it back around full circle, which is what made videos so successful, was that we finally got to get to know someone. And then we got too polished, and we got too glamorized, and we got too professional, and then we kind of pulled back and separated again. And so here's an opportunity again to that humanization of our brands and of who we are, and that makes us much more endearing and loving to people to see that it's not perfect and it's not always, like my laptop's falling over and my phone's ringing. Like, really, that's the Hangout girl? That's how she acts? Yeah, some days I have my days, you know what I mean? It can't always be perfect, but here I am. So.
And here you are. I definitely want to thank you. It's a short amount of time, and I thank you so much for being here, Brandee, for doing a couple of things. Like I said, being human, being professional, for showing us, I won't say showing us all the things not to do, because really I think what you showed us I think you really showed us how to be resourceful, when situations are not ideal. Right. I think that's what you showed us, and at the same time, we learned some lessons for that. So I want to thank you all for being here. For all those who are watching on the live stream, this is all about charity, and actually, it's two things that Brandee is giving to. One is helping Charity Water, and second is helping us to learn another skill, and that is the Google Hangouts. So awesome. We're going to be cutting over to our Hangout crew upstairs. So once again, thank you so much for being here with us. If you want to donate, up that way, somewhere. I haven't figured that out yet. But thank you so much. And
every which way. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Disaster. And then Joel calls me. He's like, Brandee, you're supposed to be on right now. And I'm like, no, I got an hour. I have an hour. I know I have an hour.